Welcome to the Investor Fuel Real Estate Investing Show, where I interview the nation's top real estate entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and other amazing entrepreneurs to help educate and inspire you to take your business and your life to the next level. My goal is to add tremendous value to you during every single episode of this show. If you get value, I'd love it if you subscribe on your favorite podcast player, subscribe on YouTube, and my very favorite, please share this with your community so we can impact even more entrepreneurs. Let's start today's show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, I've got an old friend, Matt Aitchison, is joining us here. He was on the podcast a long time ago, and I've been following you for years on social media and kind of following along a little bit, so it'll be great to catch up. But he transitioned from single family into commercial and does hotels and strip centers, shopping centers, all sorts of other things that we're going to talk about today, making that transition from single family investing into commercial. So, Matt, hey, great to see you again.
Mike, always good to catch up, brother.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has, yeah. I know last time you and I were heavy in scaling, flipping and the single family portfolio. It's been awesome to see you not only scale, the community and the value you've been bringing to, the single family space for so long, but seeing you also continue yourself to evolve and expand and grow into, big multifamily deals. It's always fun just seeing people's journey, evolve over time. And when you get around great people that are, constantly challenging and inspiring one another along the way, it's really fun to see what, comes to fruition over time.
Yeah, that's how it works. And it's interesting too, because we, a lot of people have this badge of honor of, being a wholesaler or a fix and flipper or whatever. And the reality is I kind of say, most of us are in the opportunity business. Like, we're looking for opportunities to create wealth and create more freedom in our lives. And I think you clearly, before I did, transitioned into more commercial type stuff. I do more apartments, but is you kind of realize that sometimes you're limited by what you can do only by your imagination, like what's possible, right? And so I know I made the transition. We were, we have a nice single family portfolio, and then somewhere along the lines, I was like, man, how are we going to 10x this? Buying them one at a time, and it's like, okay, we just need to do bigger deals that have more zeros behind them. And I'm sure that has something to do with why you made the transition as well. But tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I mean, I got into single-family real estate, or just the real estate industry, back in 2010. I graduated school, had this nice expensive piece of paper. I was interviewing at like $30,000, $40,000 a year jobs, and was like, I don't know if that's going to get me where I want to go. And so, I was doing my kind of career hit list of all the things that I wanted. One of those boxes that I wanted to check off was to be able to build wealth, not just generate income. And so I just kept coming back to real estate. My mom was dragging me to real estate conferences. Both my parents, corporate America. I was the first entrepreneur in my family. And my mom was dragging me to these real estate investing seminars back in, 2002 and 2003. I was in my teens. And that kind of lay dormant, but it did light a fire in me, early on. And so when I came back, going through those interviews, I wasn't seeing anything that I liked. Ended up finding an ad on Craigslist, if you can believe it. Real estate mentor seeks real estate mentee. Little did I know that means come do a lot of work for free and, exchange of an education and hopefully some proximity to people that are doing what you want to do. So I worked for a guy for free for about 12 months. This was in 2010, post-financial crisis, a lot of foreclosures in Northern California. So he was buying a ton of houses off the courthouse steps. I was project managing. I was disponing them. And just by being a part of that process, though, I started to build some confidence and things started to, slow down for me. And I really started to believe that I can go and do this. So that led me to buying my first flip when I was 21, netted $106,000. It was the cat lady house in the whole neighborhood. There was, over 100 stray cats in that home. We found 2 dead raccoons in the house. That's how much trash there was. It was wild. But that really was my, my light bulb moment of real estate investing is going to be the path for me. And obviously that, journey has evolved over time from, wholesaling and flipping houses to, hey, I think I need to generate some passive income. So I started, flipping less, flip 2, hold 1, flip 2, hold 1. And I started building a little single family portfolio. And then as time went on and you're managing a lot of projects and doors and tenants, and I saw how much I was, making per door, which was, I think, like $220 a door, something like that per month. I was like, man, I'm going to need to really grow this portfolio to a pretty big scale if I'm going to get to my passive income goals, which was $500,000 a year in passive income. So that really is what kind of took me back to the drawing table and, got me thinking about a better way, maybe a smarter, more efficient way of getting there. And that really led me into the world of commercial, which honestly, I had always somewhat been attracted to. I'd always wanted to, own a big building in a downtown area or a restaurant that, one of my favorite businesses operates out of. But it felt too complicated. It felt too expensive. And little did I know it was a lot easier than most people would make you think it is, and that's as you have the investor fuel community and you get to create spaces that amazing people come and collaborate and share and inspire and challenge one another. Getting in other spaces like that in the commercial world really allowed me to kind of take that leap. And I bought my first shopping center, and then I bought my first medical office building, then I bought my first hotel, and my second, my third. And you get to start playing the real life game of Monopoly, which has been fun. And it's been, something that gives me the ability to really exercise my creativity, in a lot of different ways that I really didn't imagine. And the journey continues to evolve.
Yeah, that's awesome. When you're in single family, commercial or commercial type deals seem like this mysterious land that's like you just can't figure it out. But the truth, even when I pivoted into large multifamily, I just partnered with people that knew what they were doing. At the end of the day, I was like, I don't need to go learn all this stuff on my own. The same way that, I've done a lot of coaching and stuff in single family. I'm like, it's not as hard as you think. So let me help you get over that mental block of, that's the hardest part when you get started with any of these things is like, is it possible? And then when you surround yourself with people or you partner with people that are doing it, you're like, well, of course it's possible. They're doing it. And now I just need to learn some of the nuts and bolts, right?
1,000%. One of the easiest ways I tell people to get into a deal and mitigate as much of your risk along the way is just find a great deal and just bring it to somebody else who's experienced, has the capital, has the team, has the network, all of the missing things that you think are, mental or physical hurdles that you can't get over to get in. Just go find somebody that can immediately mitigate all of those concerns.
Yeah.
Just take them off your plate, and you just focus on finding a great deal, and focus on being willing to add as much value to that person as possible once you bring that great deal. My first mentor always told me is like, don't worry about all the other stuff, because just like commercial, right, feels daunting for some people. I remember the first time, I was trying to figure out how to flip or engineer my first rental deal, and that felt daunting, right? So it's it's just sitting down to another game and learning the rules and learning the strategies and how do I play this. And by the fourth, fifth, sixth time you play that game, you understand somewhat at a high level how to do it and not lose. One of the best ways to ensure that you win is to bring a great deal to somebody and let them, kind of take the lead on it, and you get to participate, tap into their network, their experience. And at the same time, I always say it's better to own a slice of a watermelon than 100% of nothing or a little raisin, right? And so, that's one of the easiest ways to get into the game is you find a great deal, the money will follow. Don't worry about that. Just go and figure out the mechanics of what a good deal looks like. So that's really what I focused on in the beginning myself was what's a great deal look like? I figured that out in the single family space. I can figure it out in commercial. And that's really what led me to my first deal.
That's awesome. So I want to go back for a second. So you said something interesting up front that you went to work for somebody for free. And I've had this conversation. I have a son that's 17, and I think we talk about like where he's going from here, right? And I think about it with other people too. Is there's a lot of people that get into real estate, and they want to get rich on their first deal, right? They just like, I'm all in. I don't want to split it with anybody or whatever. And then maybe they don't even do a deal, right? Because they just they're not willing to collaborate. And I've kind of been using this, I guess, phrase or comment lately of like, don't try to get rich on your first deal, try to learn, right? And not that you shouldn't make money, you should make money, but I feel like the types of opportunities that are out there to partner with people and do a few deals and kind of learn, because you learn, the learning curve is very steep, right? Like you learn really fast, and a bunch of stuff that you thought was hard isn't that hard. It's like riding a bike. Like I don't really ride a bike that often, but if I got on one right now after years of not riding one, I'd have no problem because
Right.
once you learn, you've got that information, right? But maybe share your thoughts. Obviously, I know that you're an advocate for that because of everything we just said. But talk about the mindset shift that people maybe need to make to say, just collaborate with others, partner with others on a few. It's almost like being an apprentice, right? Just like learn the trade before you go out on your own. So maybe share your thoughts on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, especially in commercial, it's a team sport. It really is. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
are the GPs and the sponsors of the deals, but again, a general partnership can be 3 or 4 people. It could be 6 people. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many different. That's the beauty of commercial real estate, is the way that you can really get so many different puzzle pieces to fit together to achieve a shared goal. It really is a team sport, and so the way I look at that is, if I'm truly, because I always tell people, and this is something that I have subscribed to this mindset from day one. When I was 21, I said, I'm going to be somebody that thinks with a crock pot mindset versus a microwave mindset. Because a lot of people come into the space with, expectations that, and I did too. I was like, after I got my first deal done, I'm like, man, I'm going to be riding in a private jet, all over the country. Anytime I want, I'm going to be crazy rich. And then the reality of life and challenges of being an entrepreneur, business owner, and investor sets in, and you realize like, whoa, okay, this is a process. And if I'm truly committed to the outcome that I believe this process will lead me to, then I have to be committed to the timeline that this process requires. And when we talk about real estate investing, as crazy as some of the best marketers would have you think it's a get-rich-quick industry, it's a get-rich-slow industry that
Right.
gives you the ability over time to create rivers of cash flow with some injections of piles of cash along the way. And so if you do that right, you surround yourself with the right people, you learn at the highest level. Because my thing was, I was never the fastest, smartest, or strongest guy. I don't know about our listeners, right? But for me, I just knew that about myself. But what I did know is that I was good at building relationships. I was an extremely hard worker. I could stay humble along the way, and I could find the way to bring value to others. And with that recipe in my mind, I felt like that was going to give me the best chance to get around the smartest people who were faster, stronger, wiser than me in these particular categories that I was trying to succeed in. And so when it came to, commercial real estate investing, that was my same mindset of going, I'm going to be doing this for the next 30, 40, 50 years because I truly am committed to this being a vehicle that I need to master and I'm going to leverage to build wealth for me, to unlock the lifestyle I want, to make a difference in, my community and, other people's lives, to pass this, on to my kids hopefully one day and build some generational wealth. So if I truly am committed with that mindset, then one deal is going to be a drop in the bucket. Therefore, what I should be doing on this one deal is trying to extract as much value, as many skills, as best of a network, build as much trust and reputation in the process, and parlay that into the next one. And then parlay all of those same things that are going to compound into the third and the fourth. And so that was always my mindset of going, if you truly do believe that this is going to be a long-term path and vehicle for you, then you're not going to try and make all your money on that one deal. You're going to think about the lifetime value of those relationships on who you're going to be doing that deal with, the lifetime value of the experience and the knowledge and the skills you're going to gain that you're going to use for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And so that's what I always encourage people when they're first coming in is going, you don't need to if you hit a home run or a grand slam on your first one, which is possible, by the way, it's not common, but it's possible.
Right.
Good for you. That's amazing. But even if you came in and you only hit a single, that's fine too, because the more at bats you get, the more you get to give yourself an opportunity to get up on base. Many singles lead to putting points up on the board, right? So that's where I think a lot of people get a little too excited about their first deal and feeling like they need to control it, when really what you need to do is humble yourself and surround yourself with the people that are smarter, wiser, and stronger and faster in all the areas that you're not, and just take a back seat and be 100% committed to being a student in that process and learning and growing. And you'll see things that you're going to carry forward. You're going to probably see things that you're going to say, I'm going to do that differently. But you want to be in proximity in, through that process of osmosis, give yourself the opportunity to actually grow as an investor. And oftentimes too many people, cut out that chance or opportunity for themselves because they're trying to control more of the deal or to keep it all for themselves. And hence that analogy. I'd much rather own a slice of a watermelon meaning the continuity of that relationship and the opportunities that are going to come beyond that you're going to parlay your skills, your deals, the capital, other things into, versus just being like, I'm going to control this whole thing, but then what's next, right?
Right. The deals often fall apart, right? So it's interesting. Great stuff there, my friend. So one thing is that I've experienced is when people get really lucky on their first deal, that ends up being a bad thing because you have to learn, right? You have to kind of overcome some obstacles. And if you start to think it's easy, then it's not easy. And you have a harder time coming back from an easy deal and then you get your butt whooped on the second one or the third one, It's like it's almost better to ease into it. I mean, everybody wants to make a bunch of money and you would never say, no, I don't want to get lucky on my first deal. But when you do, just know that if somebody's telling you that you got lucky, like, be prepared that this next one's not going to be as easy as that.
I'm still trying to find an easy deal, Mike. So when you find one, brother, you let me know. It's like, and that's
right.
We always say every real estate deal is an ordeal. Like there's always stuff that comes up. There's always curveballs, always challenges, always times that test you. There's going to be days where there's certain days I leave the office and I'm like, why the hell am I a real estate investor? Like I am just stressing and then there are other days you're like, man, I am so glad I'm a real estate investor. Like I can't imagine doing and that's with anything, right? A good friend of mine, Cody Sanchez, she always says, choose your hard. Being rich is hard, so is being poor. Doing multifamily deals can be hard, so can shopping centers. Doing single family flips can be hard, so can wholesales. Like you can choose your hard and understand that this industry, this space, it's challenging. It's not for the faint of heart. And, while the outcomes that many people see are what are sexy and what are attractive and what pull people into the space, one of the ways to make the unsexy life of being a real estate investor more sexy is to do it with great people that can mitigate your risk, that can accelerate you getting better results, that can just be more fun being in the trenches, working and grinding and stressing with other people that can relate and are going to be kind of, I call relationships, the right relationships in real estate and just in life in general. I call them are my metaphorical bumpers to my bowling lane of life or bowling lane of business or investing. They make sure that I don't bowl gutter balls. I may not hit strikes and spares every single time I throw that ball down the lane, but I can guarantee that if I got the right people around me, they'll make sure that I'm not putting zeros up on the board too. And so that's really what's important, going back to the number one rule of investing, don't lose money. Rule number 2, see rule number 1, right? And some of the best ways that you can ensure you don't lose money and just stay in the game, because that's half the battle in real estate, right? Is just not getting knocked out of the game and having to start back at zero. If you can weather the storms that come with real estate, which we all know, many of them are going to be out of your control. Maybe some of them are going to be self-created or in your control, but have to do with lack of experience or other things. You just want to make sure you're not getting knocked out of the game, right? So I just want to make sure I still have a seat at the table. And one of the best ways that you can do that, especially when you're beginning, is just one, have a mindset that, hey, this is a lifetime value of an experience here. So I got to think way beyond just this one deal and make sure that I'm negotiating way beyond just this one deal, that I'm showing humility way beyond just this one deal, right? So thinking about the timeline that you're playing this game on, and then 2, who you're playing it with. Those are 2 really easy key things that we can be in control of that can significantly increase your probability of success as a real estate investor.
Yeah, good stuff, man. So let's talk a little about making that transition. So people are in single family and you've got the train is moving down the tracks, right? And you got to make this transition over to another set of tracks. So there's probably no perfect way, and there's a lot of ways to do this. But let's talk about how to make that transition. If you're an active single family investor and you want to move over into commercial, and I know one of the answers right now is partner with people that are carrying a lot of the weight because you don't have to do it all on your own. We just talked about that. But what are some other things that you need to think about when making that transition? I mean, and I want to get into asset classes a little bit too, because we say commercial, there's a lot of different asset classes within commercial, but just share your thoughts on how, maybe even share a little bit about how you did it and how you would do it differently, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, commercial real estate is a much slower burn than, single family real estate. The velocity at which things move are a lot slower. So thinking about that and keeping that in perspective as you're making that transition. I was still flipping houses and making sure that I had, some income rolling in vertically as
Right.
well as passively. Before I really decided to be like, I'm all in on commercial real estate. So I think, I call it my swan effect, sleep well at night. Like, what is your swan number that you need in terms of reserves, whether that's for business accounts, your personal life account, that just gives you the ability to say, hey, if I didn't do a deal for 12 months or for 6 months, however long you feel like you need that amount of runway and reserve capital, get that short up first, because we all know the amount of mental real estate and calories that are burned when you're stressing out financially, and that's really going to prevent you from starting in a place of abundance and having a proper footing to leap into the space. So get your swan number figured out first. Once you got that figured out, right, I always tell people there are so many different things. We talk a lot about this in my mastermind, is so many different things you feel like you need to focus on and learn and master before you can jump in and take that, that first swing at the plate, right? And I always say the two easy things that, you really need to learn skill-wise in commercial real estate is, what does a good deal look like? And how do you engineer that deal? How do you structure that deal? If you can do those things, if you can find a really great deal and figure out how to structure it, every other domino behind that, you can figure out. And those are the things that, if you just focus on those two things first, that leads to looking at a lot of deals, right? Just getting repetition. Repetition is the mother of all success. Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours of mastery. Just get in and get reps. I always kind of say it's like, single family real estate, we'll just call real estate investing, whether it's single family or commercial, as a chessboard, metaphorically. The first time I sat down to the metaphorical chessboard of single family flipping, I was really confused. I had an idea of, hey, I buy here, I sell here, and I make a profit in the middle, right? So that's something that makes sense to me, but you don't realize every strategy, every nuance that goes into flipping. By the 10th or 15th flip, I felt a lot more comfortable. Things were a lot slower to me. I was connecting a lot more dots. I had more confidence. I had more relationships and resources, right? And it's the same thing in commercial. You sitting down to the chessboard of commercial, just like the first time I sat down there, I'm like, okay, I think I understand how these pieces move on the board, and I understand the strategy a little bit. But by the time I played that game 50 times, I understood how to win the chess game in a much more strategic and qualified and risk mitigated manner than I did the first time I sat down. So think of
awesome.
this game as a chessboard, and you're just learning new pieces. And the only way that you're going to start getting comfortable of how this game of commercial works is by getting in the game. And that doesn't mean you have to do a deal. That just means by getting into conversations. Maybe you join a mastermind group, or you join a Facebook group, or you start listening to podcasts. You start looking at deals on Crexy or LoopNet or CoStar, and you just start getting reps by getting in the trenches, rolling up your sleeves, looking at deals, asking questions, getting around other people that are doing these things, and the game is going to start to slow down for you a little bit. So those are some of the simple ways that are easy for people to kind of wrap their head around and go, okay, cool, I can set up searches on these platforms and start looking at deals that I think I might like. By the 10th deal, you're probably not going to know what a great deal is. You look at 1,000 deals, I guarantee you there's going to be outliers that stand out to you. And as you go through that process and down those rabbit holes of learning if it is a deal or not a deal, right, you're going to start to put more tools on your tool belt. You're going to start to feel more confident. You're going to start to build out new relationships because you're going to be talking to a lot of different people. And that's the best way, right, is just to get in the ecosystem and start to understand what that board game, landscape looks like. And then you can start to figure out how to play it to the level of which you need to play it to achieve the goals that you're looking to achieve by whenever you want to achieve those by.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about asset classes. I know you invest in hotels, strip centers, I'm sure a few other things. So I guess when you first made your are there any mistakes that, I know you've made mistakes. We all make mistakes, but is there any asset class that you've jumped into that you're like, okay, I'm never going to do another one of those. I don't know why I ever thought I should do that. what's kind of become over time more appealing to you than what types of commercial properties versus others?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always tell people at the end of the day, what's your goal? When do you want to accomplish it by? And then, there's going to be some kind of, so just to back up a little bit, my goal when I started thinking about why I started thinking about commercial real estate was like, man, I'm going to need to have thousands of doors to hit the income goal that I wanted. My income goal was I wanted to get to $500,000 in passive income over the next 10 years. And so for me, I was like, man, that's going to be X amount of doors if I'm only clipping, 220 a door. So that's going to take me a long time because I can't buy 50 to 100 houses a year, or maybe I don't want to do that. So then I started reverse engineering. Okay, well, if I just bought one commercial property that netted me $50K a year when all was said and done, it was a true net of $50K, and I just bought one a year for the next decade, I can do that. That sounds reasonable to me. So then I started reverse engineering. Well, what asset classes align with that financial model, right? What asset classes are out there that have 50K left over when all is said and done that I feel aligned with? And then it started to narrow down of, okay, well, all these asset classes do, whether that was, small boutique hotels, whether that was a, shopping center, whether that was a mobile home park, storage facility. There's so many different asset classes in commercial real estate.
Right.
Some that are highly management intensive, the sober living homes, the senior care facilities, the hotels. Those have operating businesses that are operating within that asset class.
Right.
Whereas, the single tenant Starbucks drive-through that is 100% passive and I'll never get a phone call from the tenant on, that's on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and there's many assets that fall in between. So really, it all depends on how much time, how much energy, what operating skills do you feel like you have or don't have. That was the biggest thing that I learned, in the process, was going, each one of these asset classes has an operating underbelly that I need to understand as an owner. And is it something that I'm going to do and my team is going to do? For example, the hotels, we self-managed and operated, and I built a hotel management operating company to do all of those things. And it was insanely stressful, highly management intensive, and very challenging. But it also allowed us to control and protect and insulate the income and the value that was tied to the hotels. Whereas maybe a third-party hotel management company wouldn't make a lot of sense to do that because they don't care as much. Maybe it does, right? So I think those are some of the things that you got to think about when it comes to all the different asset classes. I have two verticals in my portfolio. The hotels are my management intensive asset class that I now have a third-party hotel management company that does it worldwide, and we've partnered with them to, manage the hotels. So that way I don't have to be in operations anymore. I can just be the visionary, be a little bit more passive, deal engineer and structure things, and then let them operate. My medical office building.
You did build a management company and then decided to outsource it?
I did, yeah. So I sold my hotel management company with 3 of my hotels that I packaged up in Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
And that went with the sale. My next hotel's third-party management company, because I said, I learned my lesson. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to be more passive. I still love the asset class, but here's a nuance of the asset class that I'm aware of now that I need to make sure I've got a partner for that. I've got a team that I can plug into that, so I don't have to do the things that I don't want to do in real estate anymore.
Makes sense.
On the other side of the spectrum, I've got my medical office buildings, and some of my shopping centers that are completely triple net. And so those are much more passive, much less management intensive, and are maybe a little bit more aligned with that season of my life where I'm like, I just want my real estate to pay me and not bother me, right? So I think there's the beauty of how you can structure real estate operations tied to whatever type of asset class it is and what it requires. The cool thing is there's so many different ways to put these deals together and to structure them. And obviously there's, things that tie into your economic model and your operational model that you need to think about and, understand. But those were some of the things that I thought about when I was coming into real estate and learned in the process that I wish I would have knew going in because I probably would have approached things a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Matt, are there any, one last question for you. Are there any asset classes that you see that are either being redefined or changing here over the next couple of years that are kind of they've become more interesting than maybe they were in the past. I think there's probably some that are maybe less interesting than they were in the past, given the economic climate, but who knows what will happen here after the election. But anything that seems more interesting now than it did in the past because it's kind of taken a pivot of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got kind of your COVID darlings, which were multifamily and industrial. And, I think those got a little too frothy. And with the, shift with the Fed and interest rates and some of the economic data that's come out, we've seen those really start to slow down, cap rates start to expand, demand's really been curbed. So we're seeing some leveling out in some of those, but I think those will still continue to be very bullish asset classes in the commercial space that are for obvious reasons. Retail has done really, really well, and there's still a very bullish outlook on retail. Particularly, I'm seeing institutional capital now start to look outside of just big box, national anchored or grocery anchored shopping centers and actually start to look at smaller neighborhood strip centers that we call neighborhood service centers. They're more of your nail salons, your hair salons, your liquor stores, your dog washing places that are needed, service businesses within the community, but maybe aren't in your main commercial corridors. Institutional capital is bullish on some of those retail trends with, occupancy being at all-time highs, and sales, and obviously us being in the consumerist climate that we are as Americans, that probably is not going to be slowing down anytime soon. And then I think opportunistic wise, we're starting to see some of the pricing get to levels that are as depressed as office has become, where some of the redevelopment and repurposing of those assets may start to make financial and economic sense from a redevelopment standpoint. So we're starting to see some big funds move capital there. And then to touch on the boutique hotel space, with STRs really starting law-wise in certain counties or states, pretty restrictive. That's one reason why I got into hotels in the first place was, I felt like that's one way I can mitigate risk. If you're telling me, city council can completely remove the permit of an asset that I financially underwrote for an STR and they can take that away from me, that's a risk to my real estate asset. So looking at commercial boutique hotels, the zoning tied to those, the lack of restrictions around those, I felt very, bullish on the fact that experiential hospitality is still going to be a very popular trend, over the next few decades, especially with people wanting more of the eclectic, unique experiences versus the, kind of run-of-the-mill, boring historical experiences most hotels provide. We're seeing big flags start to get a little bit creative and play in that world and try and bring it in. But that was something that I still believe, based on STR laws and a lot of things that are going on in the short-term hospitality space, that will be a trend that I think boutique hotels will continue to be a very desirable asset class for investors that still want to play in that space and kind of get outside of some of the concerns and worries people have when it comes to the licensing.
That's awesome. Yeah, and for the boutique hotels, what's a typical kind of number of rooms that would have? I'm sure it ranges, but what's kind of the range that you operate in?
Boutique hotels is generally, considered 100 keys and under. It may or may not have some food and beverage component on site. It may have some event component on site. But really, I mean, my first boutique hotel was 20 keys, and it had no restaurant, no food and beverage, no lobby. It was just a little roadside lodge that we made super cool and eclectic, and automated check-ins and check-outs and concierge. So boutique is just something that is an unflagged, uncorporate, managed asset that allows you to infuse your own personality, your own, systems, your own brand within that, hotel space.
Awesome. So Matt, final words. If people want to make some words of wisdom here, if they want to make the transition to commercial, any kind of final words of wisdom that people should consider in their process?
I mean, if you're already a real estate investor, I always tell people when people ask me, what made you think that you were going to be successful as a real estate investor? And my answer to that always is, I'm just dumb enough to believe in myself and smart enough to take action on the things that I think are going to make me successful. And so I wake up every day being dumb enough to bet on myself and smart enough to just keep taking action. And so if that resonates with you, which it should for most investors, you've already bet on yourself when a lot of the, monkey brain talk that comes in has probably tried to convince us otherwise, but we push through that. It's the same thing in commercial. Just be dumb enough to believe in yourself and smart enough to take action on the things that you know you need to do to kind of give yourself the best chance to succeed in that space, whether it's joining a mastermind, getting coaching, listening to podcasts, going to meetups, whatever it may be for you. Just don't lose that confidence and conviction that you're capable of connecting the dots and figuring it out. You just need to get yourself in the space.
Awesome. Great advice. Matt, thanks for joining me today.
Appreciate it, Mike.
And everybody, have a great day. We'll see you on the next show. Thanks for joining us for today's show. You can learn more about the amazing benefits of the Investor Fuel Mastermind community, including surrounding yourself with hundreds of other rock stars, 100% financing on your deals, and members-only discounts from vendors you're likely already using that, as a member of Investor Fuel, will save you more than the cost of your membership. Visit investorfuel.com to learn more. You can also check out the show's notes for access to free resources, how to get access to world-class lead generation, and even how to work with me directly one-on-one. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another episode. See you on the next show.